They say that fame, power, and big money can corrupt even the most sensible, kind-hearted, and devout individual. When someone suddenly becomes wealthy, gains public recognition, or secures a prestigious position, they often change, and those changes are not always for the better. The story of Brazilian woman Flordelis dos Santos de Souza once resembled a modern-day fairy tale. Born into a struggling family and raised in the favelas of one of Rio de Janeiro's most troubled neighborhoods, she managed to build what many considered an empire. She became an influential spiritual leader, launched a career in politics and the entertainment industry, and even gained international fame, earning the nickname Mother of the Nation. But that image came crashing down in an instant when a much darker side of her life was brought to light. Beneath the surface of this wealthy and powerful woman's public persona, investigators uncovered a hidden world involving financial schemes, chaotic personal relationships, an orchestrated violent act, and a group of teenage bodyguards who appeared ready to follow any command from their mother. Flordelis dos Santos was born on February 5, 1961, in the Jacarezinho favela located in the northern part of Rio de Janeiro. She was the youngest of two siblings born to Carmesina Mata and Francisco dos Santos. Her father was a creative man. He worked as an artist and played multiple musical instruments. However, despite his talents, his income was modest. Her mother ran a small home-based daycare, caring for local children. Flordelis grew up with her older brother, and their upbringing was far from carefree. They lived in one of the city's most challenged and crime-affected neighborhoods. The favelas spanned roughly 100 acres and housed over 65,000 people. As the city industrialized, the area expanded and, by the mid-20th century, became one of the largest favelas in Rio. The main issues affecting the community then, and still today, were poverty, aggressive behavior, illegal weapons, and the circulation of banned substances. Her family lived in a small, worn-down house built on shaky ground. Access to basic utilities like running water and proper sanitation was scarce. Many residents had only heard of indoor plumbing. The lack of clean water led to recurring outbreaks of infections and other health concerns tied to poor hygiene conditions. The 1970s were particularly rough due to widespread unemployment, which triggered a spike in crime rates. Still, despite the hardships, the local community remained tight-knit. Families cared for each other. Unfortunately, whatever progress was made didn't last long. Many of the newly built facilities fell into disrepair or were abandoned due to rising crime, the spread of illegal substances, and a lack of funding. These were the turbulent years when Flordelis was a teenager. She helped her mother care for local children, but life in Jacarezinho was becoming increasingly dangerous. Around that time, missionaries and street preachers began showing up in the neighborhood, spreading religious teachings and offering hope to people who had very little. For many, faith became a refuge. Among the most influential were Pentecostal ministers. Known for their powerful charisma, they quickly drew in crowds. Pentecostalism is part of the evangelical Christian movement and emphasizes personal experiences with God, especially through the act of baptism. Flordelis's parents soon joined this movement, embracing Christianity with deep commitment. Her father, Francisco, began hosting prayer meetings at their home, attracting more and more attendees. He saw this as his true calling and believed that baptism had granted him a special, spiritual gift. From a young age, Flordelis was deeply spiritual and took religious teachings to heart. She didn't just believe, she was convinced that faith could heal, fulfill dreams, and transform lives. She eagerly joined church activities, singing and dancing with the congregation. Her vocal talent stood out, and she was often invited to lead songs as a soloist. Following in her father's footsteps, Flordelis dos Santos began leading prayer meetings herself. Even as a teenager, she recognized her ability to influence others. People were drawn to her energy and conviction. She truly believed she was saving those she brought into the faith and felt compelled to spread her message as widely as possible. Still in school, Flordelis began to see herself as someone on a divine mission. She felt chosen with a special purpose. This early sense of destiny likely played a crucial role in shaping her future. Before long, she became a mentor and preacher in her own right, realizing that people were willing to listen to what she had to say. Though petite and physically fragile, she would walk into the most dangerous and crime-ridden parts of the favelas, preaching to hardened individuals about faith, redemption, forgiveness, and hope. Her passion and sincerity made people stop and listen, something few others could achieve. Her personal charisma seemed to be a powerful part of that connection. At just 14 years old, Flordelis experienced a devastating loss. In 1975, her father and older brother were both killed in a car accident. This tragedy left her and her mother Carmesina alone, relying on each other for strength and survival. Despite the heartbreak, Flordelis didn't break down. She believed the loss was a test sent from above, meant to strengthen her faith. Soon after, she persuaded her mother to rent a small space where they could host prayer meetings. She was convinced this would help her reach more people, and she was right. Even at that age, she showed signs of being a natural leader. Her sermons were seen as inspiring and powerful, and her following quickly began to grow. At 20, Flordelis entered her first official marriage. Public information about her husband is scarce, but what is known is that he was also deeply religious and a regular at her sermons. That's how they met. The couple had 3 sons together. They appeared to be a close-knit and supportive family. Her husband shared her spiritual vision, and despite still living in the challenging environment of the favelas, their bond remained strong. By the time she turned 30, Flordelis had become a widow, left alone to raise 3 young sons. Her mother was a tremendous help during this time. Together, they ran a modest daycare, and on weekends, Flordelis continued hosting gatherings where she preached, sang, and engaged with her growing congregation. The sense that she had a special destiny never left her. Her relationship with her followers grew more personal and intense. Increasingly, her focus shifted from God to herself. She began to speak of visions, claimed to have acquired spiritual gifts, and made prophetic statements about future events. Flordelis said she received messages from God in her dreams, offering her guidance and revealing her calling to lead lost souls back to a righteous path. As crime rates surged and the problem of dangerous banned substances worsened in the city, Flordelis felt a strong urge to act. She organized a group of devoted followers and ventured into some of the darkest, most unsafe neighborhoods. There, with passionate conviction, she preached about redemption and encouraged individuals caught in criminal lifestyles or battling substance issues to turn their lives around through faith and baptism. Flordelis dos Santos always paid special attention to teens and young adults, believing they were easier to guide and prevent from heading down a criminal path. With them, she was gentle but no less persuasive. And more often than not, her approach worked. She had a unique way of connecting with the younger generation, and they were drawn to her, often taking her words to heart. Stories like these were shared by Flordelis with her congregation, which only strengthened her reputation and influence. One such tale involved her encountering a street gang that surrounded her one day, and the situation looked dangerous. She told them that whatever happened next was in God's hands. Moved by her calm and fearless demeanor, they let her walk away unharmed. Her courage and composure left a lasting impression. To her followers, Flordelis became more than a preacher. Many believed she was a prophet. People whispered that she had been sent by God to Rio de Janeiro to rescue lost souls, give them hope, and lead them to salvation. The attention and admiration clearly pleased her, and she never tried to dismiss the rumors. In the early 1990s, Flordelis set up what resembled a shelter for teens and young adults, a place where anyone in need could find food, a roof over their head, and a sense of safety. She took in those who had nowhere else to go, giving them what they needed to get through tough times. On the surface, her actions seemed noble, and her status in the community grew stronger. However, it soon came to light that not all the minors living in her care were homeless or without families. Many had parents, but had left home after disagreements or strained relationships. In reality, Flordelis opened her doors to anyone who wanted in, rarely asking too many questions about their background. Legally, she did not adopt these teens. She simply allowed them to stay in her home for as long as they wished. The situation was unusual, but child welfare authorities turned a blind eye for quite some time. There were no strict rules or schedules in Flordelis' home. Anyone could come and go freely and stay as long as they liked. Word quickly spread among young people that living with Flordelis was like hitting the jackpot. This led to increasing numbers wanting to move in, causing tension among parents whose sons or daughters had left home to join her. Still, in the eyes of her congregation and supporters, she remained a savior. What mattered most to her was that the young people she took in were happy and felt safe. She offered them a sense of security, emotional stability, and hope for a better future. Many chose to be baptized under her guidance and embrace the faith of their new spiritual mother. It's worth noting that Flordelis' home was filled with young people of all ages, and the number continued to grow. Despite the crowded conditions, no one seemed to complain. Some were from neighboring homes, while others came from favelas across the city. In 1992, a 15-year-old named Anderson do Carmo came to live in Flordelis dos Santos' home. Coming from a troubled background, he arrived at her doorstep during a difficult period in his life and remained under her care. According to others who lived with them, Anderson quickly became a favorite. Flordelis treated him with noticeable affection and gave him more attention than the others. Anderson was tall, athletic, and had striking features. Many believed he was romantically involved with Flordelis' older daughter, Simone. The two spent a lot of time together and looked like a young couple in love. But what happened next caught everyone off guard. It turned out that Flordelis hadn't seen Anderson as a future son-in-law at all. As soon as Anderson turned 18, he and Flordelis began a public relationship. And less than a year later, they made it official. She was 16 years older than him, and their relationship raised more than a few eyebrows. Many suspected that their romance had started while Anderson was still underage, though neither of them ever confirmed or denied those rumors. Despite the significant age gap, the couple appeared happy and deeply committed to one another. Anderson supported her completely, and together, they preached and launched their first church. They had no biological children together, but they co-managed the group home Flordelis had founded years earlier. Roughly a year after formalizing their relationship, a woman came to one of Flordelis' sermons asking to make a confession. Tearfully, she shared that she had recently given birth, but with no way to care for the infant, had left the baby in the favela. She begged Flordelis to help. Flordelis accompanied the woman to the location where they indeed found the baby still there. She took the child in and eventually adopted him legally. Not long after, the same woman returned, this time not alone. She brought other women, each with a similar story and several small children in tow. They explained that their children had been left without guardians following recent turmoil in the area, including widespread unrest and harsh actions by local enforcement. Despite having limited space, Flordelis and her young husband opened their home to all of them. No one was turned away. Word of her compassion spread quickly through the city, and soon the media caught on. Stories about the warm-hearted preacher with a house full of rescued children were all over the news. Interviews followed, along with TV appearances. Philanthropists began to offer support, eager to help Flordelis and the many young people in her care. It didn't take long before Flordelis became an international sensation. Her story was broadcast not only across Brazil, but around the world, on radio, television, and in newspapers. The public's fascination with her grew rapidly, but so did the scrutiny. Government agencies began to look more closely, not just at Flordelis herself, but also at the many children living under her roof. It eventually came to light that Flordelis dos Santos had no legal custody rights over the many teens and young adults living in her home. What's more, she didn't have the financial means to support them all. The children under her care would come and go as they pleased with little to no oversight or formal structure. Once this became public knowledge, it sparked a major scandal. Authorities launched a criminal investigation, accusing Flordelis of harboring minors and even alleging unlawful retention. As mentioned earlier, many of those young people had families who began demanding accountability, insisting that she be prosecuted. In response, Flordelis gathered everyone in her care and quietly relocated to another favela. However, the move didn't stop legal action. She soon announced her intent to hold a press conference, stating she wanted a public platform to defend herself and share her side of the story. News outlets raced to secure seats. Journalists were eager to hear directly from the controversial figure. During the event, Flordelis declared she wasn't afraid of standing trial, insisting she had done nothing illegal. She also shared plans to reach out to the United Nations for support. Her impassioned speech once again stirred public emotion, and many rallied behind her. Flordelis quickly regained her status as a national icon. She was soon granted official custody of many of the youth living in her care, and prominent business figures stepped in to help her purchase a large, fully equipped home. The new house could comfortably accommodate more than 50 teens and even included a multi-car garage, which she converted into a worship space. Her home-based church services soon turned into a lucrative operation. Along with her husband, Flordelis introduced tithing, asking followers to donate 10% of their income. The publicity surrounding her name attracted even more sponsors and charitable organizations. With their help, she built her first fully functional church on the site of an old tram depot. Her sermons began drawing over 5,000 people daily. But more than anything, it was her singing that captivated the crowd. Seeing an opportunity to grow her influence, she launched a music career. In 1998, Flordelis released her debut album. She later recorded 8 studio albums, a live album, and a video album. In February 2002, Flordelis found herself back in the spotlight when one of Brazil's most popular television programs honored her live on air. She was awarded the title Mother of the Nation for her efforts in supporting underprivileged youth and contributing to their development. That recognition elevated her to the status of a true celebrity. Soon after, a Brazilian filmmaker approached her about producing a documentary based on her life story, including her religious work and community involvement. High-profile actors and television personalities joined the project, which premiered at an international film festival and further solidified her image. It's also worth mentioning that in the early 2000s, Flordelis made several unsuccessful attempts at political office. She first ran for city council and later campaigned for mayor of São Gonçalo, both times without success. Her breakthrough in politics came in 2018 when she was elected to the Chamber of Deputies representing Rio de Janeiro. That same year, she gained parliamentary immunity. Together with Anderson do Carmo, Flordelis dos Santos launched 8 branches of their church along with a network of merchandise shops selling items featuring her image and motivational quotes. Their religious enterprise grew rapidly, and so did their income and influence. The couple eventually moved into one of Rio de Janeiro's most upscale neighborhoods, purchasing a lavish mansion. They drove luxury cars, employed a full household staff, and had private security. Despite their significant age gap, many viewed their marriage as ideal. They appeared in public together frequently. Anderson took over as Flordelis's personal manager and accountant, handling all of her affairs. But over time, his presence in the public eye began to overshadow hers. Anderson also became a preacher and church pastor. He spoke regularly to the media, often on Flordelis's behalf, managed important decisions, and controlled their finances. It reached a point where she couldn't spend money without his approval. He monitored all financial transactions closely, which began to frustrate Flordelis. As tensions rose, the couple started to drift apart. But for a public figure like Flordelis, divorce would have severely damaged her reputation. On June 15, 2019, she arranged a romantic evening in hopes of reconciling. They spent hours at a restaurant and then strolled along the waterfront late into the night before heading home just before dawn. According to Flordelis, as they drove back, they were followed by 2 men on motorcycles. Anderson tried to lose them but was unsuccessful. Eventually, they arrived safely at their home. While Flordelis entered the house, Anderson stayed behind to park the car in the garage. Moments later, gunshots rang out. Flordelis reportedly tried to run outside, but was stopped by one of her adopted sons, who told her it was better if she didn't see what had happened. Anderson had been shot multiple times. Nearly 30 rounds were fired, and most struck him. He died almost instantly. News of the crime against the mother of the nation's husband made front-page headlines across Brazil. The case sent shockwaves through the country. Many speculated that the crime might have been politically motivated and that Flordelis had been the intended target. She held a massive all-night prayer vigil in one of her churches to honor her husband, drawing thousands of supporters offering comfort and sympathy. Meanwhile, law enforcement launched a full investigation and began reviewing surveillance footage. Inconsistencies in Flordelis' account quickly surfaced. First, traffic cameras showed no sign of the mysterious motorcycles she had described. Second, the security cameras around their house were positioned in such a way that the garage, the scene of the incident, was in a blind spot. However, one camera did capture something curious. About 20 minutes before the shooting, a taxi pulled up to the house. One of Flordelis' adopted sons exited the vehicle, entered the house briefly, then ran back out and left in another waiting car. Investigators decided to take a closer look at him. The teenager's name was Lucas, and he had a prior record involving the distribution of banned substances. When questioned about his whereabouts on the night of the incident, he admitted to making a deal and stopping by the house to stash some cash. Under pressure, he also confessed that about a week before the tragedy, he had secretly purchased a firearm at the request of Flavio, another adopted son of Flordelis dos Santos. Though legally an adult, Flavio still lived in her home. After that night, Flavio vanished. Authorities issued a warrant for his arrest, and he was found 3 days later. During questioning, he admitted to being involved in the attack on Anderson do Carmo but withheld details and refused to elaborate. Police then began interviewing all of Flordelis' adopted children who lived in her house. And what they revealed shocked everyone. It turned out that Flordelis had little direct involvement in raising them. Instead, a rigid hierarchy had formed within the household. Younger or newer members were assigned to older ones, while Flordelis, the mother, repeatedly emphasized their ultimate mission to protect her at all costs. Essentially, her children acted as her personal security team, a loyal inner circle willing to do anything in her defense. Each had specific roles and responsibilities, and disobedience or dissent was met with strict consequences. Investigators discovered that the plan against Anderson had been in motion for nearly a year. More than 10 of her children had reportedly been involved. Initially, there were several failed attempts to poison him, 6 in total. When that didn't work, Flordelis allegedly changed strategies. She used her unquestioned authority and the fear she commanded to influence the next steps. During questioning, however, she denied any involvement. As suspicion grew around Flordelis, she tried to shift all blame onto her adopted sons, hoping to convince investigators that she had no knowledge of the plan and played no role in it. She claimed Anderson had been unfaithful and that her sons, after discovering incriminating messages on his phone, had taken matters into their own hands. But her version of events didn't align with the detailed and consistent statements provided by her children. Investigators also uncovered that Flordelis had maintained intimate relationships with several of her adult adopted sons, while her legal husband had become an obstacle in her life. Authorities arrested 6 of her adopted sons involved in the planning of the attack, but they couldn't take Flordelis into custody at the time due to her parliamentary immunity. Nonetheless, the public backlash was swift. Her followers began to turn away. The religious empire she had built started to collapse along with her reputation. It wasn't until 2021 that Flordelis was stripped of her immunity and finally stood trial. In November 2022, she was found guilty of orchestrating the crime. The actual act had been carried out by her adopted son. Flordelis received a 50-year prison sentence, effectively a life term. Flavio, the son who committed the act, was sentenced to 33 years behind bars. Lucas, who had obtained the weapon, was given a 7-year sentence. Others involved received lighter punishments. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. See you soon.